Now, there is a CNN New York Times investigation that determined that the weapons used in Rafah were American weapons, the GPU 39, whatever. Do you have any comment on that? Because yesterday, I think the secretary said he was not sure yet whether it was American-made weapons and so on, something like that. So what is your position today?
So I'm going to let the IDF speak to their investigation, including what pieces.
I'm asking you about, is this a U.S. weapon as far as you know?
Again, it is not for us to speak to. We can't speak to individual weapons loadouts to Israeli aircraft. So I will let the IDF speak to their investigation findings and indicate, including anything that they have to share about what weapons were used. I just don't have an assessment.
I mean, why can't you comment on whether or not this was a US bomb? Is that a matter of policy, or is it because you don't know?
Tom, we just can't speak to individual weapons loadouts on Israeli aircraft. That's not something for us to speak to. This was not a U.S. operation, and we are not. We don't have boots on the ground as it relates to this conflict. And I will let the IDF speak to their investigations and their findings.
Yep.
Broadly, of course, the United States has a broad and robust security relationship with the government of Israel. That is certainly no secret. But when it comes to speaking as it relates to individual operations, we're just not going to do that from the U.S. government. And I defer you to our partners in Israel to speak to that.
I mean, it matters, though. You're a spokesman for the U.S. government. If this was a U.S. weapon, as has been widely reported, and all the publicly available images are suggesting, there's obviously a locus of interest for you and potential responsibility given the catastrophic deaths and the way that people were killed in this incident after an Israeli airstrike. So I'm just trying to understand why. I mean, have you looked at the pictures? Do you have...
Tom, it's important. Let's not conflate multiple things here. First, as it relates to the origin of the weapon that was used, that is something that the IDF can speak to as it relates to their own investigations and whatever findings it chooses to make public or share or not. Separately, but related, regardless of the origin of this weapon, and regardless of what the weapon was that was used, it is devastating to see the images and the videos and the imagery that we saw from over the weekend. And that is why we went to the Israelis as soon as we were made aware of this about answers, about how this incident happened, why the level of civilian harm took place, even though it was not necessarily the intent. We need to understand how this transpired, and we believe that understanding that will also continue to help the government of Israel and the IDF as it continues to conduct its operations. That is true. That is our belief, regardless of whatever the weapon of origin is, and that is something that our Israeli partners can speak to in their own investigation.
I think my question is just more about whether you know the origin of this weapon and you can't and won't talk about it, or whether you don't know.
That's just not something I'm going to speak to, certainly not from the State Department. What you're talking about, if you want to get very technical, is
no, it's not technical.
It's just weapon
every
used
weapons
in a specific
expert
operation.
That's looked at these images has established that it's an American weapon. So it just seems a slightly peculiar position not to be able to.
I'm just not going to speak to specific weapons.
Just a quick follow-up on Tom and Said's question regarding the CNN analysis on U.S. weapons. I mean, this analysis was based on open source information, like footage. Why isn't the State Department able to make a similar assessment based on, instead of relying on the IDF investigation?
We're just not going to speak to individual weapons loadouts on particular aircraft. That's not something we're going to get into from here, and I will leave it to the IDF to speak to anything that they want to share as it relates to their findings in an investigation that they have underway.